Guys, we're not saying that nice things are bad. We're saying, one, you're a public figure. Two, you're technically clergy and have all kinds of tax incentives. Three, people are giving to what they believe to be as ministry. It's a little different than what they're giving, believed to be ministry, is going to luxurious items. That is the distinction. I bought my pastor a pair of Jordan 11s, took a picture, and sent it to you guys. And you posted it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because I was like, not on the grid. You posted it on the story. Because I thought it was funny. Like, we laughed about it. You know what I mean? It's just like,
at some
point, people got to stop taking themselves too seriously.
Were they the cool gray 11s?
No, they were the tents, the Jordan 11 tents.
Okay.
You're a public figure, man. Grow up. Like, it's not that big of a deal. You know what I'm saying?
It kind of comes with the territory. I mean, I got to deal with it. Yeah, it's like, if you're gonna sign up for the benefits and the reach and the influence of being a public figure, you're also signing up for people to have their chance to input their opinion. Like, it's the nature of social media. You're a public domain now, and you shouldn't be surprised when people maybe have differing thoughts about your lifestyle. People do it to me all the time.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, some of you guys are asking the same question. Ben does come from the resale culture. Hence, that's how he's able to find which sneakers are worth more than others. He said that at the beginning of this. He said that in his book. Okay, so let's not keep rehashing that. He just told you guys he was flipping sneakers, selling stuff.
People think I spend hours like researching this stuff. It really takes like literally 38 seconds because it's not. None of it's obscure, or most of it's not obscure. The designer stuff can be obscure, but the off-white ones are pretty distinctive. Like, it's pretty easy to see some off-white ones.
I think those things are hideous, personally.
Yeah, I could never do.
Pushback: wouldn't the wisdom argument be the same as the flawed about creating a stumbling block argument? So I think those are good questions in terms of like luxury. Can luxury be a stumbling block? Can it be, can it be an inspirational thing for a pastor to have nice things? It's this tension that we live in, and I think it's I don't know. I don't know what I think about it being a stumbling block, right? Because again, I want my pastor to have a reasonable car, to be able to have a house, pay it off, to be able to put his kids through college. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't want the entire freaking congregation knowing what my pastor makes, because there's going to be some 21-year-old goofball that just read about Marx in community college.
There we go.
He's going to have a problem with him making $200,000 a year. And when you're a grown man, 35, 45 with kids, you're going to be like $200,000 a year in Southern California is not that much. Yes, he should make that, right? I think that becomes the tricky part with that entire conversation. So there has to be some type of checks and balances. There has to be a board. There has to be elders. There has to be someone to tell you no sometimes.
Yeah. I think everybody, if you're honest with yourself, everyone has some line where it seems like too much. Like if you bring up, the Creflo Dollar multiple private jets thing, most rational people are like, that's ridiculous. Yes. But it's like, if you scale that back a little bit, you can go all the way back to the sneakers. And there's plenty of people that think there's nothing wrong with wearing nice sneakers. But I think if you're honest with yourself, at a certain point, there is something where it's like, all right, that seems like too much. And that's what we're having to struggle with. It's like everyone's individual interpretation about, when somebody lives off the donations of others, when does it look like it's too much? We're not absolved of being responsible or wise with our money or sacrificially giving our money and taking care of those around us. But it's like you have to wrestle with the verse in James that says, not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly. I didn't come up with that. I mean, if you believe in the Bible and you believe about the standards that are set for literal pastors or like teachers of God's word, it's just God says it's going to be different.
Talk about the media, publishing, book deals, ghostwriting, etc., and the average person thinking that pastor is actually writing these books, not to mention their own sermons.
Bang, 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 bang.
Fired, Scott. Scott, what are you doing, Scott? I've been knowing about pastors not writing their own sermons for a long time. If you ever hear this regurgitated sermon, right now, I really don't want to get on this right now, but right now it's the same CRT sermon. You hear the same freaking CRT sermon. It's the same CRT video, CRT bad, woke bad. It's because there's writers for this, guys. There's somebody doing the research for them, the documentation for them. I've known pastors that have had teams for them. So Scott, you pulling out, you really trying to reveal who the wizard is, huh?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much here. It's like, it's kind of a self-licking ice cream cone. Like, you can build a congregation and then build a big social following, and in turn have a team of people that can write a book for you, slap your name on it, and then become a New York Times bestseller. Like, it's a pretty good deal for the guy that's getting
and the way
that.
They become New York Times bestsellers also, like, that's a finesse in and of itself. You guys could look up what Mars Hill did and how they got a New York Times bestseller. The whole thing is a dog and pony show in a lot of ways.
Yeah. There's so much here that has spawned just from dudes wearing sneakers. And so that's what I want people to at least give a thought to, because many people just want to write it off as either me being a hater or write the other side off as them just buying into celebrity culture and living lavishly off tithe dollars. I think both sides need to give some thought and not just like alienate the other side because they have their own preconceived notions about stuff.
How do you define balance? And I'm going to give you, my thoughts on balance, but how would you define balance? How do we have nuance? How do we be gracious yet ask good questions, yet give people something to think about? Because I think what Preachers and Sneakers was for me, and I'm just going to speak for me, it was a mirror. It was a mirror into the heart of my own consumerism and my own idolatry with stuff. And with kind of looking up to some of these guys like they were the man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was helpful for me. What would you say is a healthy balance to have in all this?
Honored to be a part of that. I don't know why he chose me or allowed this to happen, but I'm honored to even be a part of that because I could have never planned that or like sketched this out. Balance is something that I talk with my therapist about a lot, because oftentimes you deal in extremes with this account because people want to say their extreme opinion on one side or the other. And that's something I'm always trying to pursue. I have to go back to the moment things start to own you, where you're more worried about your stuff or your money or how you look or your appearance to people or how people receive your message. If you're more concerned about that than serving the God you claim to serve or pointing people to Jesus, that's something that you need to reevaluate. And it can be money. It can be your job. It can be a hobby. It can be your service to the community. Anything that's to an extreme probably needs to be reevaluated. And that's not something I do perfectly. Like, I have an obsessive personality. And so oftentimes I'm spending hours and hours a day on Instagram, and that's not moderation. And that's something that I have to constantly fight against. And, the opinions of others are something that I oftentimes value too much. And that can be to my detriment. So I think the biggest thing to me, is people need at least one or two people around them that can lovingly speak truth to them and not be scared to say exactly what needs to be said in that situation. So if you care too much about your job, if you're neglecting your family, or if you're spending too much on sneaks or whatever, if you have a couple people in your life that can say, hey bro, dude, you need to chill the heck out, bro. Do worse at your job and go serve your family. Like, I think that is a huge key in achieving balance, I think, because oftentimes we can tell ourselves lies, and we can, in our heads, we can say we're doing the righteous thing, but oftentimes an unbiased or maybe an objective outside opinion can be helpful to achieving that.
I love how you brought that back to community accountability. I love that you said avoiding extremes. Ecclesiastes actually tells us to avoid all extremes. You tied that into mental health, and you having a therapist. I'm have a guy I meet with virtually every other week. It's very helpful. And guys, be praying for Ben, because you got a book out. This is all relatively new to you, and you just talked about the wide extremes that you get in your DMs, that you get in your freaking comment section. So that has to take some kind of toll on you. So I think we should definitely be praying for you, praying that God continues using you, because he's used you in my life, man, which is super dope. As a closing thought, what I would say, guys, is hey, outside of any of this, I want all of us to honor God with our time, talent, and treasure. And to me, the most reasonable way we do that is by not running up consumer debt, by not being a hype beast and spending irresponsibly, because a lot of folks do that in this culture. And if you want to jump into this, man, I think flipping and GOAT and StockX, and if you have a Nike clearance store, is a great way to actually learn business. We're both business guys. We're both entrepreneurial, right? So I think it's a great segue to develop some useful skills with understanding consumer behavior while at the same time not becoming the trick.
That's right.
Don't get tricked out, guys. Don't get sucked into this stuff, because ultimately, I think it's cool to have nice stuff, but when nice stuff has you, it's no longer cool. And you've now became the trick. You've now became the consumer. And so I think all of it is with moderation. My biggest application point to you guys is go honor God with your time, talent, and treasure. Figure out a way to get out of debt, to have some useful skills. And if you want to get nice stuff, I want you to have nice stuff. I want everybody here to have the shoes they want and to have the house they want and whatever, but not at the expense of being irresponsible, not at the expense of neglecting your family, not at the expense of being a derelict with your finances, and not at the expense of being generous and open-handed with your finances, being willing to give and be generous. So,
Kingstream Entertainment, Ruslan.